can promise you this is going to be a good day. It's a good day to be in Louisiana. It's a good day to be sitting here in this great country, exercising our constitutional right to speak. And the constitutional right that allow you to do what you do as the press. Because in this place we live, this beautiful place as we are on the eve of springtime. You know it's springtime in Louisiana because the LSU livestock show happened. Then the Southern livestock show happened. And you see Skip Burton making ridiculous predictions on TV every night. How great they're going to be. But it's great to be here. But to start this legislative agenda, I would be remiss without talking about the elephant in the room. As we sit here today, many of our members who deal with protecting our environment, when I say protecting our environment, our focus is focused on what has happened in Louisiana and what is going on now. Some of you might say, well, the Green Army must be the army of the Green Deal. We're not. That Green Deal would happen way before most of us are dead, after that comes to fruition. But it must happen too. But as we sit here today, we are faced with a great danger down in St. James Parish. We wish we could have written a piece of legislation that did not allow that to happen. But look, we got people in the room like Darryl Wiley here from the Sierra Club. Guess what they were doing with that gypsum before they started putting it in the pile in the sugarcane field? They were dumping it in the Mississippi River. And after the Clean Water Act, the people of New Orleans and the sugar factory just south of that gypsum pile said, no, you cannot put that gypsum in the river because it's radioactive. And they came up with an alternative solution, which was to pile it up, and in this case, create it as a levee and put 1 billion gallons of water in the middle. That had to be a Georgia Tech engineer that came up with that. No way a Louisiana guy would come up with that. Because you know you can't build something that big close to the levee, a freestanding structure. But it's there. The state and the federal government are doing what they can, working with the company. But this is why we do what we do in the Green Army. Because if that containment was to break, we would automatically probably end up with another Superfund site in Louisiana. And we don't need that. That'd be another place that would have significant impact on Blind River. And those of you familiar with the waters, you know where it dumps into Maupaw. So we would have a major mess on our hand. But again, this gypsum pile was created by Louisiana law that allowed them to stack gypsum, radioactive material, and put water in the middle. Right now, that pile is 187 feet high. We don't have a piece of legislation to deal with that today, but we may have to have something written if we can find a local legislator that will sponsor something that say, what are we going to do with gypsum? For every 1,000 pounds of fertilizer we get from this gypsum stone, we create 5,000 pounds of waste. Now the people in Point Capee, they need that fertilizer. The people in Laval Parish, they need that fertilizer. That's what they use to grow crops with. But this is a lot of waste from a product that's being used for fertilizer. And the runoff from it causes significant damage and runoff that proliferate the algae bloom at the mouth of the Mississippi River. We've shared with you a handout. This is our effort this year in working with organizations across the state. Because in Green Army, we are a guerrilla army. We don't have a flag in front of a headquarters. It's in my truck or at my house or in a coffee shop in Baton Rouge, someplace on the River Road, meeting with some people. We pull together organizations, concerned citizens from all over the state that's fighting pollution, and organizations like the Louisiana Environmental Action Network, the Sierra Club. I see members here, Darryl Wiley and Mary Lee Orr. Those are the units that's actually taking the fight on the ground and trying to get the pollution resolved working with state government, working with local government, and working with people to try and resolve the pollution. The first bullet we have here is open burning. That's in Colfax, Louisiana. Some of you remember Colfax for 3 years now, right? We've been talking about Colfax. We still talk about Colfax. They're burning tons of toxic materials. They're primarily Army ammunition and pyrotechnics from places like Disneyland. And they're open burning. And you say, well, Gerald, what's wrong with open burning? It's against the law. The Clean Air Act says no open burning. They give exceptions to sugarcane fields, thank God, but not ammunition. And this place in Colfax is the only place in America on private property, which is owned by a company called Clean Harbor, that open burning is allowed. And what they use is the old Roman army method. They pile it on the ground. The only difference, they use a sheet of iron and they set it afire with diesel, and it burns. And that creates a lot of bad air. That company has been fined this year by the LDEQ for over $800,000. But as you know, when a company gets fined, that don't mean they pay. This is multiple years of negotiation and handshaking before that actually get resolved. The good news is this company this year is up for a renewal of the permit. So we want to keep the hammer down, and we want a bill that basically say, based on the people from Colfax, led by Ms. Linda Valley, with advice from Ms. Wilma Subra and Mr. Bowie, the organizational leaders, that they want that plant fixed. They want a combustible chamber bill to make this burning like we did in Camp Minden. Create a chamber, put it in, use best technology. They're not asking for the plant to be closed. They want it fixed. They want a burning chamber to be established, and that could be done. That's a multi-billion-dollar company. The headquarters in Massachusetts. And I'll bet you a fat man and two chunkies, they wouldn't be burning that crap in Massachusetts. I can just tell you that. But they do it here in Louisiana because we allow them by exception from the state of Louisiana. That's the only way it's happening. And this has nothing to do with the military. This has to do with this company burning this stuff on private land, the only place in America where they're burning on private land. They could go to any military base and burn it, which have great big impact zones that wouldn't impact the people that live right near there. And we've got surveys that show that there's an extraordinary amount of thyroid cancer in that community. We're asking for another air bill, fence line air monitoring bill, that would be triggered based on a number of incidents that might happen at a certain plant, and the local government can request that DEQ require that company to put in air monitors. That sounds fair enough, doesn't it? What's wrong with that? It's 21st century. People, right now, if you call the DEQ, you have to wait till somebody come out to verify it. And the way the winds blows and the company is told, because soon as DEQ call, they call the company. Say, anything going on out there? Oh no, it's not going on. And by the time the DEQ get there, which sometimes is within a few hours, sometimes it's in a few days. And that's another problem we got to fix. But air monitoring based on triggers. Drinking water bill. We got a problem in Louisiana with drinking water. I think if you look at our papers, the Advocate, others, Time-Picayune, the papers in North Louisiana has done a credible job telling the story of what's happening with the water systems, primarily in small towns. It started in St. Joe, but ladies and gentlemen, what you saw in St. Joe is just the tip of the iceberg. There's almost 300 just like it. The governor has created a task force that respond when a town has a problem. But we need to be proactive, and we need our small towns, which are suffering from revenue stream problems. You saw Mark Ballard wrote a good article about that this weekend. They're suffering for cash. And many of those small towns that own water systems, they use the money from the water system as the cash cow to run the town. They have no other source of revenue. That's a dilemma. What that being said, a lot of these towns, the governor is forced to put an administrator in there to run the town because they're deficit. They're running in the red on their funds and they can't pay their bills. And he's got a responsibility as the governor to make sure people got clean water. So he may put a contractor in there along with an administrator to run the water system. That does not fix the problem. That's a Band-Aid. That's like taking your car and fixing the tire as opposed to putting a new one on it. We need a repair of the small water systems in Louisiana. Up to 1,245, up to 600 are at risk. The governor's task force has created the top 10. But I'm telling you, we're going to lose population in rural Louisiana if we don't fix this. I was talking to a politician out in Grand Coteau about 18 months ago. And on St. Landry Parish accent, the lady said, well, we got a beautiful farm yet, General. But our son went to LSU, he married one of them little girls from New Orleans, they won't move here. I said, why? Because we got brown water. They're gone, they're not staying. And brown water, you can go from Jeanerette to Mamou, to Grand Coteau, to Donaldsonville, all the way up the Chaffalat Basin, you're going to find communities with brown water. That has to be fixed. And the legislator got to fix this. The legislature in Louisiana, we said here we got to pass your audit by the end of January every year. And that's not happening. If you don't pass your audit, the state will take over your water system. And the other thing about not passing the audit annually is you can't get a loan. The federal government is sitting on a pile of money. But guess what state is not getting federal money? Louisiana, because they can't pass the audits. We're saying in this bill, we need to look at consolidating water systems as well as making audit turning in and adjustments by the 31st of January. We think the Louisiana State Auditor needs to look at practice and procedures we're doing in our water systems to make sure people are properly trained to operate them. And I don't think that's happening now. Because if you don't follow the procedures, you will not qualify for a water loan. And the federal government is putting billions of dollars in the coming year in water systems. But if you don't pass the audit, you can't get a loan, you can't get a grant, and it's for drinking water as well as sewer. You know, I was surprised to go to St. James Parish. Well, we put in this multi-billion-dollar plant, we got sewer running in the ditch. How can that be in the 21st century, in the shadows of multi-billion-dollar plants? That's a crying shame. And because they can't qualify for federal loans to put sewer system, they got to fix that. We need to get these land-grant colleges, Southern University and LSU, to teach this. This is knowledge we need for the 21st century. The next Southern Hill Aquifer, we're sitting right on top of it. And somebody said, well, General, you keep bringing the same issues up. Right. The Southern Hill Aquifer is a big deal. And we all acknowledge the sad news of the people at Georgia Pacific losing their job. That's a sad thing. And we don't know what impact, because Georgia Pacific was the biggest user, 66 million gallons a day, 44 million gallons a day. And Exxon is still right at 21 or 22 million gallons a day, the two biggest users. But that being said, we still think we need to have something going on with this aquifer to limit industry use. Here's the only thing we said. Baton Rouge to the north, they're using aquifer water, plants. You go across the river in Port Allen south, they're using river water. All we ask an industry to do is Baton Rouge to the north, use river water, like right across the river. Dow use river water. Certainly Exxon must have enough qualified engineers to figure out how to do it. I mean, we give them tax breaks most of the time. There's a love affair with Exxon, but they need to respect that aquifer, because one day the aquifer will fail. But the idea is how we extend the life of the aquifer, and one way to do it is they use 22 million gallons a day is to get them weaned, just like Dow, Shell, and Motiva, all of them use river water south of here because they don't have the option. But Exxon is sitting on top of this. One of the selling points of Baton Rouge is what? Our water. People come here for their water. They love it. We got to see how we preserve it for next generations. Schools and playgrounds, we want to have in the legislation, in the enforceable standard, that a principal or a member of the parish government can say, hey, there was our place got flooded, something happened at the plant, or we got a bunch of kids sick, we want you to immediately come out and test the soil on our playground. Jacques Moriel was just telling me about a case in New Orleans where some concerned families had it tested where the kids play, and they're now replacing the soil on that because it was an old metal shop back in the day that they covered up and put a playground on. So we want to have a bill that abandoned oil fields. We love oil in Louisiana, don't we? We love that oil. It runs the state. It creates almost as many jobs as tourism. Hello. It creates almost as much money as tourism. But our problem is this. I'm being sarcastic, of course, in my own point of view way. Last year, when we talk about abandoned oil wells, they capped 40 wells and they added another 400 abandoned wells. Now I'm going to take this bill, I'm going to take it in natural resources. I'm going to tell you how it's going to go. Mr. Bishop's going to sit up there from Lafayette. He's going to put his big arms on the table. And he's going to look at me and say, General, we can't do that to big oil. I said, well, all we want them to do is what they went into the oil well is to cap it. That's what's on their permit. And his buddy from Big Oil, Louisiana, going to sit right in there, big old guy. And he's going to say, well, we can't do that to the little operator. Let me tell you what that's doing to us. They capped 40 wells last year. They added another 400 abandoned wells. But guess what? They don't call them abandoned. They call them orphan. This happened in plain daylight. You got to see this hearing when they come up. And we'll get 3 votes with us. And the rest of them won't look at you neither. Look down at the paper. It's a sin in plain daylight, folks. We got a beautiful place in Louisiana. And I don't go to places like Honoré, Lafayette, and down on the bayou and talk about the global warming. I go talk to them about pollution. And you know what? They all got a voice that said we got to do something about it, General. This is something we got in common. These abandoned oil wells, they're not getting fewer, they're getting more. And that is the way the legislature had written the law. I hope when we have that bill that y'all will show up, because we got to shine light on this. This is affecting, and the reason we've got to do it is look at this little sheet. It was in the paper. It's a lead story published by the LDEQ on where you should not fish and eat fish in Louisiana. I didn't create this. The tree huggers didn't create this. The activists, as we are called. Environmental terrorism didn't create this. It was created by the industry that allowed the affluent water and the abandoned oil wells created this. I'm not in the mercury business. But those people that was using that pet coke up there to make power, they were. And that's how that mercury got in that water. I think the challenge of the 21st century is how we're going to clean this up. Because this is a story that everybody in Louisiana needs to be aware of if you love to fish. And you'll see spots along our coast where we've got this man here show us going fishing. Right here, this man right here, I watch him every Sunday. While we're going fishing, there are places we catch beautiful fish. We shouldn't be eating them. I got 2 more. Chloroprene. We got a problem in St. John Parish. Mayor Leor, Dr. Subra, and others have been hours down there working with a plant called Danker. Used to be owned by DuPont, right? Now it's owned by a Japanese company. The EPA said chloroprene, the safe level of chloroprene is 0.02. The state gave this company an order. You got to get to zero, let's say the state said this, you got to lower your chloroprene. Then the state came out and said, well, we don't believe in what the EPA says, 0.02. It was well articulated in the paper over the weekend. The closest they've come is about 75, as opposed to 0.02. And we've got reason to believe, and we got surveys coming back, health surveys. We've got blood tests taken of those kids down there. We've got reports from the EPA that basically say the exposure to cancer from this level of chloroprene is hundreds times higher than the rest of the people in the state of Louisiana. That plant is still operating. The other thing we found out when we put the heat on this plant, they had an open pit they didn't tell the state about. The state act like they didn't know about it. But we know about it now. That case is going to court. DEQ funding. Yes, I'm asking that we restore the size of DEQ to pre-Gendo years. Something out of those dark ages would happen was he cut DEQ from over 1,100 to just over 600. What's happened over that time, ladies and gentlemen? The plants are getting older. We've been identified as the chemical corridor. The number of plants are going up, and we got less people to deal with them. Where we see this is when we talk to our people in the field like Alexandria, St. James, St. John, Mossville. They ask for the EPA, DEQ to come, and it might be a few days before they get there. And Dr. Brown is right. I don't have the people to send out there. One of the first things Governor Jindal did, he increased the number of water testers by about 30 his first 6 months in office. Why? Because they had been cut. Now the water testers come out of the Department of Health. Governor Edwards did, was to put the water testers back in. That's Miss Kathy, she keeps me straight. She's my conscience, she wrote all this. So we've got to get that fixed. What we're saying to the legislature, bring DEQ back to the pre-Gendo years. And I hope y'all agree with that. We need more inspectors, not less. We're bringing more plants in, and the plants that we have are older. Last point, I'm doing it on time. I'm almost there. Ouachita River. You might have seen some great news last week that up in Arkansas, that a case was being settled between Georgia Pacific and the state of Arkansas over at Crossett, Arkansas. Wilbur Suber with Lean did a lot of work up there, helping those people bring that case to fruition. And they were being fined a significant amount of money. But that finding had to do with air. But there's another problem at that Georgia Pacific plant in Crossett, Arkansas. It's the water. They discharge their effluent water in the Ouachita River. North of that plant, this young man has a picture. You can see the water in the Ouachita is blue. They're out there in kayaks. South of that plant, which is just a few miles north of the Louisiana border, the water is black. So we've talked to Dr. Brown about that. He's got to address that. He's got to do a resolution. He's got to do a study. We've got to get a law passed. We need to protect the Ouachita River because it comes all the way to Monroe. And if you look at this advocate map, or you go on the DEQ website and you blow that thing up on your big screen computer, you'll see the Ouachita River is one of them that's polluted. That's got signs on it, don't fish here. And last but not least, that we brought to you on the first time I came here and spoke to you about the capital city lake, what a crying shame that is. And we were told by DEQ recently they're working on finding a solution. Governor Foster signed a law saying clean that lake. You know how long he's been out of office, right? That lake ain't clean. And 2 years ago, I called the governor's office right after he took office and said, why we got people fishing that Capitol Lake? And the word came back, well, everybody know you shouldn't fish out there, General. Well, where are the signs? Them kids out there, they got their bucket with them. They're out there, they're subsistence fishing. That's what they were taught by their grandparents. You see water, you go fish in it. We can't even keep the signs up there. It ought to be an embarrassment that in the shadow of the great state of Louisiana, our capital, the water is polluted. That's a crying shame in Sportsman Paradise. I love Louisiana. But the reason I'm here today is to use our voice with the people, our frontline organizations, and the concerned citizens to create bills and laws. What I learned when I was in Washington, working on the national, as a deputy on the National Security Council, I used to go to that Situation Room. I used to sit in with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Is that if you're going to change something, you got to change law, or you got to change regulation, or you got to change funding. And we've got a lot of that to do in Louisiana. And I want to thank y'all for allowing me here. I look forward to engaging you in questions. And we need you to do what you do. And that is to report what's happening and what you see and what they're saying about what they see. Because I can tell you there's a stir coming in Louisiana. There's a wave. I think people got awoken by BP. And people started looking around. Where can I no longer fish? Where can I no longer hunt? And we are hunting and fishing people. Don't mess with our culture. And this go beyond. This ain't just a blue issue. This is a Democrat, it's a Tea Party, and it's a Republican issue, for which we have all on our Green Army board. People from all political persuasion. Because pollution is pollution, and we need a solution to pollution. Thank you very much.
I forgot to remind everybody that only members of the press club and the media can ask General Honoré questions, and we actually are looking for more members of the press club. So if you feel stymied because you're not a member and you can't ask him a question, well, all you have to do is join today.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Do you have sponsors lined up for any of these bills?
Yes. The question is, do we have sponsors for the bill? My favorite friend these days is this little legislative book. And this is the time of year, as I said in the spring when the lifestyle show come a month before the session, it's hard to find legislators because they're all doing their day job. Yes, sir, but we're working that hard, and we've got a lot of them that have promised. Now we got to get them to put the bill in.
Could you name some of those legislators, please?
I would not. I leave it to them because it's actually their bill. When you see this, it's not the Green Army bill, it's the legislator, and they have prerogative, and they change these. They say, okay, I'll talk about Califax, but this is the way I'm going to do it. And I need to leave that to their discretion on what they want to leave in the bill, because they submit it. All we do is give them a few words, say we need to do something about this. And it's up to them and their passion. I tell you, it works. 2 years ago, we had Katrina Jackson pass a resolution that said the cancer registry had to give us census data, data at census level. The year before in St. John Parish said there's no problem with cancer in St. John. The year after she got that resolution passed and we got that data, Mary Leo and Lean was able to download it from the state data site. It's one of the most cancer-prone parishes in the state. Just the year before, the cancer registry said there's no problem there. It's their data, but they would not release it at that level. And what it showed is significant problems in St. John. And you too can have that data if you want. Talk to that man right there. He'll tell you how to get it. Thank you for asking that question. Yes, sir.
General, every group I know of, whether environmental protection, labor groups, they all rate or rate legislators. Do y'all rate legislators? Do you have a rating, a list, where you rate your legislators?
Well, I tell you what, the gentleman's question is, do we rate legislators? We tried that the first year, and we did pretty good with it. Our problem is we have a very small bandwidth. Bandwidth meaning our office is where I'm sitting and I'm talking on the phone to Jacques, and so we don't have that level structure But what you're reminding us again is what well-placed leaders have told us. We need to have a scorecard. And maybe we'll get to some work done on that year. Because another thing we don't do in the ground, we don't raise money. We're self-sustaining. We don't raise money. Because I thought if we started raising money, somebody would give me money. Then they're going to tell me what the hell to say. And I don't want to be beholden to that. You with me? So we're free-spirited. But I think if you watch the Natural Resource Committee, you don't need to watch the Senate Natural Resource Committee because they don't pass nothing and they don't talk about nothing. They just show up. They had passed a bill about saving the environment. Nothing else. Most of the people in the Capitol don't believe in global warming. They don't believe in climate change. They don't believe it. I don't know what we're teaching in our schools. They don't believe in it. But I can tell you what, that sea level's rising. If you don't believe me, go see Pointe-aux-Chenes and see what happened to them hardwoods. They're all dead. And the river's rising, we got to move these people. The climate is changing. Now, you might argue why it's changing. That's okay. But it is changing. But we should probably go back to the scorecard, sir.
They got places like, organizations like CCA, they raise funds and they do it. But how can you get some of those people to come home? If you're the only one you got, well, I'm trying to word I'm not you. Work in the legislature, lobbying.
Well, we got some help, Miss Kathy and Jonathan and Marilyn, but we'd love to work with the CCA. I'd love to go talk to the CCA.
CCA is sponsored by some of these oil companies. Shell spends a lot of money. Some of these oil companies I know you've worked with and get along with. But how can we find a medium where the truth, that's all you want, the truth, and if they have messed up, give them some help.
Well,
clean it up. Just like these fishing lakes. I just saw that. That was one of my questions.
Yeah.
You caught it already.
Oh, yeah.
How can they gonna clean up them lakes without any help or any money?
What's the question?
The question was, well, we're going to have a scorecard for the legislators. His other point is, are we collaborating with other groups like the CCA that have funds and have lobbyists? And Kathy talked to him. She's a member, as I recall, right?
No, not a CCA.
Okay.
Wildlife Federation.
Wildlife Federation. But we're kind of in a different space because you're defined by who you take money from. But I see the programs on the CCA, and it looked like we ought to be on the same side of the road. Same thing with the Nature Conservative. They're on the other side of the road. They're not on the same side of the road because we fighting pollution. We want to figure out who put this here and let's clean it up. And the idea of an orphan well is a lie. The state of Louisiana had the first person who drilled that well said they were going to cap it. And we know who that is. Our records are that good. But they sell them to wildcatters and to others who eventually turn them back over to the state. We have on tape where one of these operators said, well, I'm done with the well. For me to cap it now, it's going to cost me $5,000. All I've got to do by state law is give it back to the state. That's how stupid we are. That's crazy. And we get more oil wells than ever. Yes, sir.
Who is the Green Army?
The Green Army is a collection, a consortium of groups like Louisiana Environmental Action Network, the Sierra Club, the Bucket Brigade, the Concerned Citizens of St. James, the Concerned Citizens of Camp Minden, the Concerned Citizens of Alexandria and Colfax. And what we do is bring the political piece of this together to try and create bills and give voice. And we do have voice. With this group, we can call and get meetings with this governor's staff. We couldn't do that so well with the other governor. But this governor, we do have access to his staff, what we call him to say his issue. The drinking water issue in St. Joe. We were able to call some of my friends, and we raised $35,000 buying water heaters for the people of St. Joe. Not much of that came out of Louisiana, We put it in the paper, we put it online that we were gonna go buy water heaters. Not much help here. But we were able, I got friends that wrote checks and we took those water heaters up there, including Mr. Hayes Town back there, helped us and bought water heaters for these people. Because when you change the old water system out, all the white appliances are bad, you got to change them out. And the poor people that couldn't afford it, we bought water heaters under the Green Army name, but people like Hayes Town stood up and Mary Lee Horn helped us collect the money and went up there physically and took the money to Vidalia and bought the water heaters. That's who we are. We're an action-oriented unit. If you call me and you're close enough, I'll go that day. Somebody called us Friday, a lady in over at Carville. Somebody brought some gypsum and used it as fill dirt next to her property. These people are 70 years old. They use the gypsum as a fill dirt. They put river sand on top. They raise their property 4 feet above these people's property. You got about a 6-acre little place where she take care of rescue horses. Guess what happened? That gypsum on that pile is flushed in her yard, killed their pecan trees, killed their rabbits. They had to stop raising chickens. Half their place is flooded. Guess what the parish government tell them? Oh, you fighting big dogs there, girl. Y'all on your own. Well, why in the hell we got a government in Louisiana? First of all, you're not supposed to flood somebody else's property. Right? And oh, by the way, you're not supposed to use gypsum as fill dirt. It's plain daylight is happening. People want to know why we have so much litigation in Louisiana. It's because we allowed this to happen. Every one of them abandoned oil wells is going to end up in litigation. That's why we have, because we don't follow the basic laws. We proliferate litigation. Because them poor people, all they got is 2 horses now. She used to have 5 or 6 horses she took care of. Again, no rabbits, no chickens, and the pecan trees are dead. The local lawyer said, well, you fighting against the big boys. That's what they told her. And I did call the DEQ, and he's going to send an inspector out there this week. But it's gypsum land, which is poisonous, water running over onto their property. And oh, by the way, they closed the drainage ditch. These people live on River Road in Carville. That's a crying shame. I spent 37 years in the Army, so people would have the right to feel free in their homes, right? They come back here, and this company from Monroe just come down here and destroy these people's lives. You should see these poor people. They're crying. They did nothing wrong. But that parish government in Iberville Parish let this happen. They got no voice. Go to the lady there in Sorrento who lived next door to the Sorrento landfill, Miss LeBlanc. She did nothing wrong. She built a house. They started putting waste in there. Then they allowed industrial waste to go in there. They're putting industrial waste in and they're covering it with back ass from sugar mills. If you've been around a sugar mill, you know what that smell back. Miss LeBlanc is living in misery. She's not free. It's like she's living in Russia. And it's happening in plain daylight. This has to stop in Louisiana. These poor people deserve better than that. Yes, sir.
Back on another subject, you mentioned the Capitol Lakes. What if, I know there were some sources years ago. What are the sources of pollution now? And I know it's got a lot of trash often in the lake.
The primary culprit that we've talked about is PCBs from those Westinghouse residue. There's a Westinghouse drop yard just north of that. And again, the law is written out. You can see it signed by Evans. Say, clean this lake up. And right now, we were told a spot report a week or so when we met with DEQ that they are working on a solution. And if they don't have that, we will have a solution. We just hired 2 adjunct professors going into a water lab at Southern University. One of those professors, Dr. Linda Schweitzer from Michigan, has a solution to clean it. So if LDEQ don't get it done, we'll start cleaning using that lab at Southern. Thank you for asking. This question was about the capital city lakes. I'm sorry. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit, I realize you may not have numbers, but on the drinking water issue, could you talk a little bit about being proactive in order to address the problem? Can you talk about kind of how much it costs to be proactive about the drinking water issue versus waiting until it becomes a crisis so you have to do that?
I can tell you this, the EPA estimate about a year ago was to get clean water to your front door costs about $32. If you go to my sister's house in Point Capee, guess what they're paying? $12. Guess what they're paying in St. Joe before they went defunct? They were paying about $20. And in Center up there, a little town Center, not Central here, Clayton, I'm sorry, they were paying $20, but over half of them had not paid nothing. So that's why these small water systems go defunct. They were put in after the big war, after World War II. I remember very well when I was growing up, them bringing the water system in, and we went from the well in the yard to the parish water system. But I think what we have to do now is that we need to consolidate. My own opinion as a solar state, when we were fixing St. Joe, is don't put an $8 million well in St. Joe. I advise the governor's people on that. Lake Bruin is a quarter mile from St. Joe. Hello. It's run by a private company that provide water to Tensas Parish. Why spend $8 million on 500 homes and you got the cleanest freshwater lake in North Louisiana where the rest of the parish get water from? Well, once the governor announced that $8 million, there's no way those legislators are going to let him pull that back. So we rebuilt that water system. Guess what else we did? The construction engineer of that, who was selected by the state, allowed them to put a Wi-Fi system to do the water metering, Jock. You don't even have that in New Orleans. They put the Wi-Fi meter, a state-of-the-art metering system. The problem is, St. Joe didn't have Wi-Fi. Hello, this is like a damn joke sometimes. So then we had to go hire a guy out of Texas to come put a Wi-Fi system up in St. Joe. I mean, we meant well as a state. But we, and the governor told the people, we do not have money to do another St. Joe. That's why he created that task force. We got to do better. And he's trying like heck, but he inherited this problem. This has been kicked down the road for way too long, folks. We got to fix our drinking water. We got to clean up those orphan wells. Abandoned wells. I can't believe I said orphan. Abandoned wells. And we've got to take care of issues like these gypsum piles. We need to find 21st century solutions. You know what? There's solutions out there. We already know of somebody that can clean that gypsum and that water. The problem is the company won't pay for it. That's the problem. We've got to apply a 21st century solution. Because I think the Green Deal is to figure out how we clean up pollution. We got to do that first. As we go from 7 to 10 billion people in the world, we got to figure out how we're going to clean up this water and what we've done to surface water in America. Because it's a shame. Yes, sir.
Why isn't the state pursuing more public-private partnerships to address this issue of small-town water systems?
Well, the question is, why is the state not doing a public-private partnership? There is something, a brew out there that's got to comment a little bit of concern. There's an industry that follows the rural water system around small businessmen who want to take over these water systems. And said, okay, we'll give you so much per bill, city, and we'll run it. Guess what? Baton Rouge got a private water system. Atlanta, when I was living there, Mayor Shirley Franklin, she gave up the water system to a private company. But it costs you over $100 a month in Atlanta for a 3-bedroom apartment. Same thing in Baltimore, over $120 a month for a 3-bedroom apartment. Now, Phoenix, Arizona, guess how much it is? $34. They're in the desert. Why? Because they did not privatize water, they made it a part of the infrastructure. And I think people in America ought to have a right not to have to pay profit for water. Because that's what's going to happen when we turn it over to industry. It's going to be a cash cow for industry. Why can Phoenix, in the middle of the desert, sell water for $34, and in Atlanta it's $100? Why? Because it's a cash cow. It's another tax they can say they don't have to raise. That's what they buy police cars for, is send themselves off to professional development seminars. And of course, we have no revenue off our water in Baton Rouge. It's a private water system. But these rural parishes, folks, the death of the small town is not just Louisiana, it's happening all over the country. They have no revenue base. And I think our tax structure is a part of it too. When we don't tax woodlands in Louisiana, forest. A lot of our state is forest. We don't tax them until the year they collect the wood. Well, that's a lot of wealth built up, right? You know, large sugar fields, they get sugar subsidies. They pay very little tax. I got a friend with a 4,000 acre plantation. He pays about $100,000 a year tax, 4,000 acres with oil and a sugar mill on it. Hello, we need to relook at how we doing tax. I mean, I hate to bring that up. I'm not one way or the other. I just pay mine.